for many people, debt is what slows this whole process down. And if your savings rate is eaten by credit cards, loans, or interest, your years to retire just stretches further and further. So before we can race to financial freedom, we need to clear the runway. What slows this down the most? Debt interest. It drags your savings rate down and it pushes the finish line out. So next, we're going to clear the runway by slaying debt. This is important. If you have debt, then a strategy can make all the difference, which is what we'll put into place right now. Not all debt is bad. Some debt can build your future if you manage it well. Some debt for investment or even for insurance purposes is what we'll call strategic debt. So suppose that you take out a student loan to raise your earning potential, or a loan on an asset that will appreciate over time like a house. So rather than just considering investing in the stock market, or in the UK, what would be the FTSE, we will invest in footing your own self, in Foots Me, right? That's yourself. So you are your own highest returning asset. These debts can work in your favor, making you more money. And other debt, it's toxic debt, like such as debt for vices like drink, gambling, drugs, or debt for pure consumption like a flat screen TV that you gotta have. These debts can work in the other direction. They can cost you money. Credit card debt, payday loans, short-term financing for consumption or vices. They may seem harmless at first, but they can really stack up and pull you away from your goals, right? It's like lobsters that are dragging you back into the bucket just when you were escaping. So knowing that difference between good and bad debt will help you prioritize. And look, if you've got multiple debts, you need to know what's helping you and what's hurting you. First step to success in slaying your debt is understanding this. The next step towards success is getting all your information in one place. Use a spreadsheet, pieces of paper, a notebook, an app, it doesn't matter. Look, whatever you use, as long as you're using something to track it. For every debt you have, just jot down the amount that you owe, the interest rate, minimum payment, and you may be able also to see how much longer you have until it's paid off. Now, we're not just paying debt down, we're increasing your savings rate. Remember that? So that your years to freedom shrink. Now, once everything is laid out in front of you, you can visualize it, and visualization helps you understand it, and in turn, you can work with it. But now, it's time to finally choose a repayment strategy. And there are two main ones. First, we have the debt avalanche approach. We're going to rank your debt from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. And look, if I click on the spreadsheet here, you'll see how the order of the debt changes. This method ranks from highest to lowest based on interest rate. And what you do is you put as much money as you can towards the top one that's charging the most interest, while you're paying the minimum. Remember to pay the minimum on the others as you work your way down. If you don't pay the minimum, you're going to accrue more and more fees. This is the mathematical approach, as it's the most efficient way in terms of saving you the largest amount of money. But second, an alternative approach is the debt snowball method. Here we're going to rank your debt, the size of it, from the smallest balance to the largest balance. So look, if I click here, you'll see how the order of the debt changes. This method ranks again from smallest to largest in terms of the amount owed. So we're going to start by paying off the smallest amount of debt first, ignoring the interest rate. I know, it's mathematical blasphemy, but the psychological tricks really do work when you get those quick wins first. It's like lifting small amount of weight on the first day at the gym. If you go back, because you were able to complete your first gym session with ease, you're going to go back, right? Because you're going to get that feeling of good. Whereas if you start the first day and you're trying to bench like, I don't know, 1,000 pounds, something crazy, it's probably not going to happen. You're going to get demotivated. So you get quick wins, paying off a smaller amount first, faster than you could pay off the larger amount. Quick wins, psychological, emotional, it works for most of us. Then you roll your payments over to the next debt, right? Once the first debt is paid off. Then once that second debt is paid off, go to the next debt and the next one and the next one. And you feel really good. And that's how it works in practical order. It's more of an emotional or psychological approach, but it works by building confidence when you knock off the loans one by one in order of debt size. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, which path should I choose? It's better picking one and sticking with it, whichever you feel you'll stick through. Look, for most of us, it's probably going to be Snowball, and Snowball definitely if you need motivation. Avalanche, look, if you're very able to control your emotions, then Avalanche if you want to save money and you are committed. Now, I am an Avalanche guy, but if you don't stick to it, then it's much, much better choosing the Snowball approach. The important thing is taking action and persisting. Just do it. Don't give up. Both strategies are better than doing nothing. A hybrid payoff strategy is what I like to call dominant interest plus micro wins. So you want to target the highest rate with about 90% of that extra money you have. That's the avalanche. But you want to send 10% to the smallest balance, which is like the snowball for dopamine wins. So you're going to get the mathematical efficiency and the momentum. There are two levers. Paying faster, that's the balances, and also lowering the interest rate. You heard that last part right. I'm going to call this flexing your debt, or flex your debt, make it flexible. See whether there's any flexibility on each debt. So what you do is you call each lender and you ask for a rate cut or a hardship plan or late fee waivers and log or record the results. Now, if they'll drop you to a fixed, let's say 6 to 9% for 1 to 5 years, then probably you should consider taking it. Next, what you want to do is you want to compare a 0% balance transfer, but only if the 3 to 5% fee they usually charge you up front is less than the interest that you'd pay at your current rate. And you can kill that balance before the promotion ends. So once the rates are lowered, we're going to freeze the spending on those cards. We're going to automate the minimums on everything. And we're going to funnel all the extra into your target debt. Now, you can use the Avalanche if you're looking for mathematical optimality, or Snowball if you need the wins fast. That's how just one 10-minute phone call can shave months off your payoff and years off your freedom date. So just ring up the loan company and say the following. Hi, I've been a customer for whatever number of years you've been a customer for. I'm working on a structured payoff and I want to keep this account. Can you help me lower my rate? Or could you place me on a hardship rate for maybe 12 to 60 months? Now, I can commit to, let's say it's $100 per month, whatever that number is. If not, I'm considering a balance transfer, but I'd prefer to stay with you if we can get a better rate. So we're going to enter the boxes here. Balance, current rate, monthly payment, balance transfer, BT fee percentage, balance transfer months, that's BT months. We're going to look at the post-promo rate, so after the promo ends. If there's any leftover, we haven't paid it back by the time the actual promotion has ended. Also the rate cut target, if you manage to cut your rates, and the hardship rate and the hardship term. So what you want to do is you want to fill these numbers out after calling up the lenders, and then everything gets calculated for you. So all you got to do here is look at the recommended action. In this case, it looks like the best thing to do is to go to a 0% balance transfer. And we can see the savings versus the baseline. It's huge, right? That's the cheapest path for your numbers. We're saving a whopping $2,109.08. And it's going to take us about 26 months to pay off. And just below that, by the way, you can see the actual cost, total cost in terms of fees and interest for the various options. So you can really see how much cheaper, right? That BT balance transfer is very, very cheap. The total cost is much lower. So we compare that to the baseline, we're getting that $2,100 savings. All you have to do is enter those boxes in white on the left. And in the gray, you're given what's recommended. And by the way, I'm currently not a licensed financial advisor. This is not financial advice. And if you need financial advice, I suggest that you consult with a licensed financial advisor. This is just my opinions. Who am I to know? 20 years doing this kind of stuff. Just take it with a grain of salt. And even if I was a licensed financial advisor, I would have to be your financial advisor to give you financial advice. Now, in terms of category-specific flexibility, you've got student loans, like federal student loans. So here we're thinking about getting an auto pay discount. Or you can look at income-driven repayment or save programs sometimes, where sometimes, depending on how long your qualified repayments have been going on, you can potentially have forgiveness. There are all these kind of plans like that. There's interest saving consolidation, where again, it's important to keep the federal protection by looking at public versus private. You want to focus on public loans. In terms of auto or personal loans, think about credit union refinancing quotes. They're often the easiest interest rate wins, because there you might be able to get a lower rate or a shorter term potentially. No or even low fees. Now, there's also make sure that when you're doing this that you check that there's no prepayment penalty. Very important, that one. In terms of your mortgage, well, look, you can recast that after you make a lump sum payment. This usually, when you put a lump sum payment into your mortgage, this is going to lower your monthly payment that you're doing, as opposed to a full refinance. A full refinance, the goal there is to lower the interest rate or potentially change the term, the actual that you're on. Also to get rid of, I've done in the past, get rid of the PMI, MIP if you're FHA, but private mortgage insurance for conventional loans, or mortgage interest premium MIP for those that have Federal Housing Association FHA loans. Or sometimes they do refinances just to get the cash out to put it into another property or something else, cash out. Or sometimes just to title change, okay, because they want to maybe move it from a personal to a LLC. That's usually a different type of loan though. Again, another thing you can try to do is consider, would you like to speed up the process by making bi-monthly or bi-weekly payments? That's basically twice a month. So that usually means that you're going to be paying a little bit extra, like a 13-month payment essentially over a year, because you're paying twice a month. That's 52 weeks. So that just works out just like that, so that you're getting a little bit faster. You might shave a few years off the pay down. And also you're paying more principal off each month. So your equity is growing faster, although at the other side of the coin, your interest rate deduction isn't quite keeping up with pace. Again, you got to do that, up to you whether you want to do that or not. But we want to do really overall, we want to lock in the best interest rates, and we're going to run the payoff plan. So lock automation, make sure you hit your minimums, make sure you have one weekly top up to like the target debt, but watch the fine print. The transfer fees. How long is the promo until it expires? Are there any deferred interest? You don't want that. Like on store cards in particular, like if you've got different store cards for different, like Walmart, etc., they sometimes charge what's known as retroactive interest if you don't finish it. So also check out, you make sure that like there's no payment holidays where interest piles up. Short relief is only good if it speeds up the payoff. So do this today. Give yourself a 15-minute timer to call just 2 lenders and celebrate wins. Even a 3-point rate cut is worth hundreds over a year. Now, it wouldn't be right to discuss debt without mentioning debit cards and credit cards, like the differences, because, you know, how we use them, it's going to shape our financial habits over time. Now, debit cards, they spend your money by pulling cash straight, directly from your bank account. Credit cards, on the other hand, they're going to be spending the bank's money, not yours. They're going to be lending you money. And if you don't pay on time, they're going to charge you an interest rate, usually very high. But if used wisely, if you pay back in full on time at the end of every month or every payment period, credit cards can be a great, very smart tool, as they offer points, cash back in some cases, or travel rewards, essentially giving you free stuff for spending money that you were going to spend anyway organically. So if you're buying weekly groceries, for instance, or fueling your car, paying for public transport, your phone bill, etc., etc., and you've already have the money, then using credit cards and paying them off can be really good. Especially if you pay them off immediately, it's a good move. But importantly, if you cannot afford to pay for something outright in cash in the first place, then you probably shouldn't be buying it with debt either. There are a few exceptions, in my opinion, and they're the big one: property, but also things like healthcare, education, income-generating assets, anything that generates income, and sometimes even insurance, anything that's going to make you more money. But for everything else, I would say save first and then spend later. Let's put in some safety guardrails. So avoid debt consolidation loans unless the behavior is fixed and the rate or the term, that's the length, is clearly better, so it's lower. There's no origination fee surprises. Another thing is avoiding retirement account loans or tapping investments unless you make a clear disclosed trade-off. Maybe you're thinking about doing that because you're saving taxes. So that's something I do, but it's a bit more advanced because essentially you're going to be losing the compounding of this. So unless you're a super investor, I would avoid tapping into your retirement accounts and taking loans from them. Do not take payment holidays that capitalize interest, right? That builds up, unless it prevents default and you've got a very solid, concrete reset and restart plan.